Welcome back to Work Past the Record, the podcast where we talk about second chances, employment, workforce development, and the realities of rebuilding a life after incarceration. I'm your host, Lori. Today we're discussing something that affects thousands of people returning to the workforce every year. Yet it rarely gets talked about in reentry programs, job interviews, or workforce conversations. We're talking about the skills gap. Now, when employers talk about a skills gap, they are usually referring to the difference between the skills workers have and the skills employers need. But today, we're looking at the skills gap through a different lens. We're looking at what happens when someone spends years or even decades incarcerated while the rest of the world continues to evolve. We're talking about technology changes, industries change, workplace change, the way we communicate changes, the way we apply for job changes. And when someone returns home, they often are expected to jump right back into the workforce as if none of those years happened. But the reality is that incarceration doesn't stop the clock. The world keeps moving. Today's episode is about understanding that challenges and exploring ways to bridge the gap between where someone is today and where they want to be tomorrow is important. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about incarceration is that when someone is released, they simply pick up where they left off. But life doesn't work that way. If someone has been incarcerated for 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, they return to a world that may look completely different from the one they left. Think about how much has changed in the last decade alone. Many businesses no longer accept paper applications. Job searches are conducted online. Interviews may happen through video platforms. Schedules are managed through smartphone apps. Pay stubs are delivered electronically. Training is completed online. Even clocking in and out of work often involves technology. For someone who has been disconnected from those changes, the learning curve can be steep. This isn't a question of intelligence. It isn't a question of motivation. It's a question of exposure. Many returning citizens are trying to learn years of workplace changes in a matter of weeks. That's a challenge anyone would struggle with. The first step in addressing the skills gap is recognizing that it exists. You can't solve a problem that nobody acknowledges. Let's talk specifically about technology. Technology is one of the biggest barriers many returning citizens face after release. Imagine applying for a job today. Before you've even spoken to a hiring manager, you may need to create an email account, upload a resume, complete an online application, respond to emails, reset passwords, navigate company websites, and complete online assessments. For many people, these tasks seem routine. Why? Because we've grown with it. We acknowledge it, we've learned it over time, and as it has progressed, so have we. For someone who has spent many years incarcerated, they may be completely unfamiliar. They don't get to take computer classes all the time while they're incarcerated. They don't have access to internet while they're in there. So they're really green at this technology when you think about it. I get people, they come out, they get a smartphone. Some of them went in, there weren't even phones. And I've said this in a few other podcasts where they went in and they were still using pagers or you had to use a payphone. And now they have this mini computer in their hand and they're like, I don't even know the first thing about this thing. I don't know how to work it. My family has been trying to teach me. So we have to remember that. And the challenge doesn't stop once employment begins. Many employers use apps to communicate schedules. Benefit enrollments are done completely online sometimes. Training modules are completed electronically. Workplace communication may happen through digital platforms. The problem is that employers often assume everyone already knows how to use these systems. When someone struggles, they may be viewed as unprepared when the reality is they simply haven't had the opportunity to learn. Technology skills can be learned, but first we have to recognize that technology exposure is not equal to everyone. And think about this, someone that lives in a very rural area maybe has internet that's super slow. Maybe they are in a poor family where they don't have a computer to learn on. And, I just said having this phone is not the best way to learn. People struggle with that. When we hear people use the term skills gap, we often think about technical skills, but many of the challenges returning citizens face involve workplace systems and expectations that aren't always obvious. Today's workplace often requires employees to complete online learning, manage schedules electronically, track productivity, use digital communication skills, navigate employee self service portals. These aren't necessarily difficult skills for those of us who have adapted and learned and grown with them, but they're skills that many employers assume employees already possess. The reality is that many returning citizens are entering workplaces that operate very differently from those that they may have experienced before incarceration. Without guidance and support, the gap can become frustrating for both employees and employers. So it's important to have someone that has the patience to walk someone through and not be like, what is wrong with you and why can't you do this? Why can't they do this? Because they're not used to it. So it's important to be able to work with someone and understand that everybody's technology skills are different. Sometimes the biggest barrier isn't a lack of skill, it's a lack of confidence. Many returning citizens worry they're too far behind. They compare themselves to younger workers who grew up with smartphones, computers, and technology integrated into everyday life. They may feel embarrassed asking questions. They may avoid opportunities because they fear failure. But here's an important truth: being unfamiliar with something does not mean you're incapable of learning it. Many people returning from incarceration have overcome challenges that most people cannot imagine. They may have survived difficult circumstances. They have adapted to environments most people will never experience. They have demonstrated resilience, persistence, and determination. Those qualities matter. The challenge isn't whether they can learn, the challenge is believing they can. Confidence grows through practice. Every new skill learned becomes evidence that growth is possible. So I do a little exercise with my groups as they come through, and it is, do you think you can draw? And most of the time, people are like, I can't draw. I couldn't draw a stick figure if it was just me tracing it. But the man that does the class, and it's on YouTube, shows you that you can draw. You just have to believe in yourself. So most times we don't try things and we're not successful at things because we have self-doubt. And the only barrier to success is the one we hold in our mind. And that came from Franklin Roosevelt. He said that quote. I probably didn't say it exactly the way he said it, but he is the one that said it. Think about this, even as a person that's never been incarcerated. or has a record or barriers to employment. How many times have you not done something because maybe your whole life, your parents or your family said you'll never be able to do that? Oh, you can't do that. Oh, that's too hard. You'll never be able to do that. Think about that. When someone is constantly telling us we can't, we probably can't, we'll never be able to, we believe that, right? Because we feel that these people that we trust around us are telling us they know our capabilities better than we do. It's not true. You can do anything you put your mind to. You just have to have the willpower and determination to see it through. So sometimes I get people that are fresh out of jail and they've applied for 2 or 3 jobs, and then they call me and say, "I've applied for jobs, I'm not hearing back, haven't even gone to an interview." "How many jobs have you applied for?" "Well, 2, 3." No, you have to apply for a lot of jobs because you have to have the motivation to want to work and be ready to work, and you have to have the determination that you're not going to take no for an answer. The only barrier to our ability is what we hold in our mind. We have to shut out any negativity that comes towards us. When someone tells you you can't, you look right at them and say, I can. When someone says you'll never be able to do that, you look right at them and you say, I will be able to do that. And I am going to do that. You have to believe in yourself. And if you have the belief in yourself and you have that confidence, you can accomplish anything. That's the important thing to remember. You may want to get a CDL license, but you don't even have your driver's license because you've been incarcerated for a long time or you lost it due to, traffic tickets not being paid, let's say. Once you get on the track where you get your license back and you get car insurance and you're driving legally and you're doing everything you're supposed to and you still want to get that CDL, then you pick up the book from your local DMV and you study that thing front to back to front, middle to ends to middle, whatever way you have to do it. And you go and you take that permit test and you get that permit and then you sign up for the class because you can do it. Now, obviously, if you have a whole bunch of DUIs and that's what you lost your license for, you're not going to get the CDL. But that's a reality. That's not somebody telling you you'll never be able to do that. That's just the reality of it. You have a whole bunch of OUIs and DUIs and driving under suspensions. It's going to be tougher for you to get a CDL. But just having tickets that were unpaid and, or you're a female, for some reason, people tend to think that females cannot get their CDL. They can. There's a lot of female truck drivers out there. So that's your goal. That's what you want. If you have that set as your goal and in your mind, you believe that you can pass that test and take that class and be one of the best, then you do it. Don't let people talk you out of things. And that's where we see a bigger issue with people that are just leaving incarceration. They have been in such a structured environment of everybody telling them how to do things, how to think, when to do them, what to do. They cannot think on their own. You have to have confidence in yourself and know I'm free. I don't have anybody telling me what I need to do, nobody telling me how to do it, and nobody limiting what I can do. One of the most important employability skills in today's economy is the ability to keep learning. The workforce is changing faster than ever. Many jobs require ongoing training. New technology is constantly being introduced. Industries continue to evolve. The employees who succeed are often those who remain open to learning. For returning citizens, that might mean workforce development programs, community college courses, industry certifications, apprenticeships, online learning platforms, employer sponsored training. Learning as an adult can feel intimidating. Many people worry they've been out of school too long. Others fear they won't be successful. But education isn't about proving what you already know. It's about gaining access to what you don't know yet. Every certification earned, every course completed, and every new skill developed increases opportunities for future employment. If your employer, let's say you get the job, wants to teach you forklift training, you take it. You see that in the community, there's a welding class coming up where you can get a certification. I don't care how old you are. If you want to learn welding, you sign up for that class. A lot of community colleges offer scholarships. They offer free learning. In some cases, they have grants and funds that can help people be able to take the classes to get the certifications they need. Many places offer paid apprenticeships. If you want to be a plumber or an electrician, you work with a licensed plumber or electrician, and while you're getting paid, you're learning all the skills you need to learn so that within 2 years' time, you can get your own license. That's what an apprenticeship is all about. And are you ever too old to learn? Absolutely not. I went back to school in 2016. I graduated high school in 1984. I went to business school in 1985. In 2002, no, 2000, I went to EMT school. 2002, I went to community college to become a paramedic. In between, I went to the fire academy. I was in my 30s then. In 2016, I decided I'm going back to the community college and I'm getting a degree. And that's what I did. That was 10 years ago. I was 50 years old, but I did it and I had my associate's degree by 2018. And then I didn't think I was going to go for my bachelor's degree. And was living up in Maine, and I said, you know what? I'm going for my Bachelor of Science degree in my field, which is criminal justice. And that's what I did. I signed up. I took the class. I did 5 classes at a time while working full time. I had my Bachelor of Science degree in 2020. That was 6 years ago. I was 54 years old. I didn't care. I'm thinking now at 60 years old, I might go get my master's degree. I'm closer to retirement than I am to stay working, but I still think about it. You're never too old to learn. Getting certifications, taking advantage of any opportunity that your employer wants to offer, or workforce development. You could be at an unemployment office or a workforce development office. Everybody calls it different. Trying to look for employment, and they may offer classes. And you may say, hey, you know what? I always wanted to do that. And they'll sign you up for it. I don't care how old you are. If they are offering you classes, take it. I get certifications at work all the time. I take online courses. I'm in the process right now of becoming a digital literacy instructor. I'm almost done with that. I just became a financial literacy instructor. I'm a certified career navigator. I also am certified in e-commerce and marketing. Any courses they offer to teach me, I take them. I've taken AI courses. You have to take advantage of what's out there because that's how you stay marketable. The more you learn, the greater your chances are for future employment, promotions, different industries. It may be just what you are looking for. The conversation isn't only for job seekers, it's also for employers. Employers often say they can't find qualified workers. At the same time, many qualified individuals are struggling to find opportunities. Sometimes the issue isn't ability, sometimes it's exposure. Employers can play an important role in closing the skills gap by providing clear onboarding, offering mentorship, investing in training, creating opportunities for skill development, focusing on potential instead of perfection. A person may lack experience with a particular system today. That doesn't mean they can't master it tomorrow. The best employers understand that skills can be taught. Character, work ethic, and determination are often much harder to find. Employers want good employees. They want the go-getters. They want the ones that say, I want to learn everything you can teach me because I want to go places with this company. Onboarding is probably, in my opinion, the worst part of any job because it can be confusing. It depends on the platform that you're employer uses for you to onboard. And when someone doesn't have that technology savvy, uploading your ID and your social security card and your bank information, pictures of it, and a resume, whatever you need to upload can be very difficult for someone with no technology skills. So making that very clear and user friendly, no matter where you are on the technology skill level, is important. Offering mentorship. My company offers mentorship. I was a mentee last year. I learned so much from my mentor. We check in once a month when we can. Sometimes it's just a quick email, but at least I know she's there. And when I have a question, I go to her and I get the answer. It's important. It teaches you more about where you're working and the parts of the company that maybe don't align with your job, but it lets you understand things better. If a company invests in training, as I was saying, if they offer different certifications, that's because they know employees can be taught. Creating opportunities for skill development. So, I don't know, doing continuing education classes, or maybe they got a new machine and they say, you know what, these 5 people would be great on this machine. So let's start with them and we will train them so that they can move on to this machine. And once they know it well enough, maybe they can start training people. You never know. It could happen. Focusing on potential instead of perfection. Nobody does a job perfect. People make mistakes. It's human nature. It's part of life. We have to accept it. That's where the constructive criticism can come in. Nobody wants you to be perfect. They want you to show your potential. They want you to be the one that says, don't tell me I can't do something when I know in my heart, in my brain, I can. That is potential. Potential is showing an employer what you have to offer and how you're going to offer it. Okay. So that's important. Character, work ethic, and determination, those are things that you either have or you don't. It's hard to find somebody that's got a good character, they have a great work ethic, and they are determined to be the best employee at the job. Many people now, they're just lazy. They want everything handed to them. They don't want to work for anything. We see it generationally, but even people that are closer to my age, they feel like, "Oh, I've worked all this time in my life. It's time for me to, like, take a step back and let the youngins go in and work harder." No, that's not how it works. What is your work ethic? Are you showing up on time? Are you there to work? Are you working the hardest you can? Do you have a good character? Are you friendly to everybody? Are you respectful? Do you ask questions when you need to? Are you helpful to people? That's character traits. That's stuff that is hard to find. As I said a bunch of times, I think in many podcasts that we've done, many of the episodes, I feel that since COVID happened, people's social skills have faded because you were stuck for almost 2 years with the same people all the time. So there was no socialization, and people relied more on, like, communicating through computers and text messages and phones. And when you lose that face to face interaction with people, I feel like you lose part of, not just your social skills, but how you behave towards people. So it's important to keep that in mind when you're talking to people. Always be respectful. Show your character for what it is. It's such a simple thing, and yet it's so hard to do sometimes, right? So the skills gap can feel overwhelming. When someone looks at everything they don't know, it's easy to become discouraged. But success rarely happens all at once. It happens one step at a time. One new skill, one new training course, one certification, one opportunity, one accomplishment. Maybe this month, the goal is learning how to use email confidently. Maybe it's building a resume. Maybe it's learning spreadsheet basics. Maybe it's earning a certification. Progress doesn't require perfection, it requires consistency. Every skill learned narrows the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So if you decide that you're going to take a course for a certification, you have to be consistent in your studying and showing up. If it requires reading, taking the test, watching the videos, whatever it takes for you to get that certification, you need to be consistent. You can't decide this week, I'm going to this course 5 out of 7 days, and then the next 2 weeks you do nothing. And then, "Oh, I'm gonna do it 3 out of 7 days." Now you can't remember what you learned 2 weeks ago. So being consistent, setting aside that time. Maybe you say, "2 days a week, I'm gonna work on this. This is how many hours it is. This is how long it'll take me." Well, maybe I wanna get it a little bit faster, so I'm gonna set aside Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., and that's when I'm gonna work on this certification course. That's what you do. That's consistency, but you have to do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 6 to 7 so that you don't fall behind, you don't forget anything, and you can be on track. So consistency is important, and that's with anything, whether you're learning spreadsheets, consistency. Tons of online free courses to learn how to use a spreadsheet. You jump on, you do it with the video, you learn it, but you do it until you somewhat know it, right? So that's consistency. Building a resume, which we're going to talk about in the future and how to fill that gap. But building a resume, it's important. You want to put down every certification course you've taken, every class you've taken. You want an employer to see you for what you're worth and what you do know rather than what you don't know and what you need to learn. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this thought. A criminal record creates barriers. Long periods of incarceration create challenges. But neither one determines your potential. The truth is that many returning citizens possess qualities employers desperately need. Think about this. Resilience. You've made it through all that you've made it through because you were resilient in your surroundings. Adaptability, same thing. You learned to adapt to where you were. Now you're learning to adapt to where you are. Perseverance, never giving up. Following through, making sure that you are going to persevere through any challenge. Discipline, setting aside those times that you set aside to make sure the job or the learning or whatever you're doing gets done, and not letting anything deter you from those times that you have set aside. That is discipline, sticking to what you have set as a goal. Problem solving. I'm sure many people, when they were incarcerated, had to problem solve. We have to problem solve every day in life. Learning to adapt the problem solving that you learned to different areas of problems on the outside is doable, and you can do it. Determination kind of goes with perseverance. You are determined to be a better person tomorrow than you were today. And today you were determined to be better than you were yesterday. And you're not going to give up. You're going to keep fighting until you get what you want. The challenge isn't whether those qualities exist, because they do in every one of us. The challenge is connecting those qualities to today's workforce. So think about those qualities and how you're going to make them work for when you get that job. A skills gap is not a life sentence. It's simply a distance between your current knowledge and your future opportunities. And that distance can be crossed. One lesson, one skill, one job, one day at a time. Everybody preaches one day at a time in the big book if you're in AA or NA. One day at a time is important. We always want instant gratification. I don't care who you are. One day at a time. Patience. Patience is what gets the turtle to the finish line, right? The turtle was, patient, going at its own pace, and beat the hare. If you know what I'm talking about, the hare and the turtle. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Work Past the Record. Until next time, keep moving forward, keep learning, and keep working past the record. Bye.